Hello, Universe. I'm here to talk about video games and science fiction. I'm Joey, and I'm here to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, Mega Man, and even some science fiction. I've been feeling a little apathetic with the future of some classic science fiction franchises, but hey, another classic science fiction franchise has just come back. I'm looking forward to some X-Files. I'd like to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man comics. Video games adapted into comic book form. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog CD was adapted into Sonic at issue 25 as sort of a, well, I couldn't really call it an anniversary exactly, but an anniversary-like event. The 25th issue got an adaptation of Sonic CD in comic book form, though it was adapted to the comic book universe of Sonic the Hedgehog. And this is probably my favorite all-time two-dimensional platforming video game, Sonic the Hedgehog CD. It's an amazing game. If you have the chance to play it, I recommend it. If you have the chance to play Sonic CD in any form, I recommend it. Although I do kind of have preference to playing it on the Sega CD. Recently, the Sonic comic book universe underwent a major reboot. Well, the word reboot is thrown around a little bit too much. It wasn't a reboot so much as, yeah, kind of. Basically, there was some universe-shifting events that caused the timeline to change. Now, there was a real-world reason for that. One of the writers who left the comic book a long time ago was kind of angry, although I don't know how this could be remotely justifiable, was angry that the series that he helped develop, that he had helped build up, that he had written stories for, after he left the series, he continued to reference characters he created. So they had an event that affected the space-time continuum of the Sonic universe, and now Sonic's comic book universe is, and I kind of like this idea, Sonic's comic book universe is more like the video game universe. Yay. So I guess that would mean events of Sonic CD would now probably take place shortly after the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 1. But what is really kind of important right now is Mega Man went on hiatus. Yeah, that's kind of shocking. The Mega Man comics were awesome. Think of some of the more, trying to think, what would be the word for it? The more thoughtful, the more complex, the more intelligent storylines within the Astro Boy series. Think of that. I'm thinking of some of the English translated Astro Boy cartoons of the 1980s and some of the themes and concepts in it. It was a pretty impressive series. And there's been many, many incarnations of Astro Boy before and after that as well, too. Mega Man echoed that. And did a really good job of it, too. The Mega Man comics should not be underestimated. And as of issue 55, it's on hiatus, which happened a little bit ago. I wanted to talk about it, but I wasn't able to pick up my comic at the comic book shop at just the right time. But anyway, I strongly recommend to anybody who has any interest in Mega Man, or for that matter, it reminds me a lot of Astro Boy. The better Astro Boy stuff, too. Anybody who has interest in anything remotely like that, check out the Archie Comics published version of Mega Man. Not only did it cross over with, and I don't mean like some minor crossover detail, it had major crossovers with the Sonic comic book universe. Not only did it do that, which made it, in a way, linked to the longest running video game comic book ever. Not only did it do that, which is epic in and of itself, it was an awesome series on its own. The Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man comics, they're an interesting form of awesome that probably can only exist at Archie Comics. I think Marvel or DC would have tampered with them or canceled them or something by now. Archie Comics also did a really awesome version of the Ninja Turtles. Probably the second best version of Ninja Turtles ever, just behind the original black and white comics. Even though it had the look of the Goofy's 80s cartoon, it actually had some real depth to the storytelling. And the guys behind it, I think, had to fight Archie Comics every step of the way to keep the quality level up, because I think Archie just wanted to go goofier and sillier. Oh well. And unfortunately that series came to an end. But Sonic started off pretty goofy and silly in comic book form. But it as the series evolved, and it became a really impressive comic book series. And Mega Man was part of that. Not part of the same universe exactly, but part of a related multiverse. Yeah. And now Mega Man is possibly gone. It's on hiatus. Date of return? Unknown. Possibly, quite possibly never. So that's why I recommend keeping interest up in the Mega Man comics. And if you haven't seen them, they are pretty impressive. They did a really good job of staying true to the concepts in the video games and the plot lines in the video games, and just remixing them enough to make it a really interesting comic book series. Something else I always want to talk about is science fiction. What could be more retro than the X-Files, back in the 1990s? Well, Star Wars dates back to the 70s, and Star Trek had the 1960s. Oh, Forbidden Planet. There it is. Forbidden Planet, 1950s. Wow, that's old. It might actually be too old to be retro. Probably not. No, I don't think it's too old. Yeah, Forbidden Planet. Now, that was awesome. Yeah. To this day, Star Trek Enterprise is still my favorite television show. House MD came pretty close, but Star Trek Enterprise is still my favorite TV series ever. And I lost a lot of respect and interest in the Star Trek franchise with the 2009 Star Trek movie and Into Darkness. I love the idea of splitting the timeline, creating a parallel universe using time travel. I actually really like that concept. And that's the only thing I like about the 2009 Star Trek movie is its way it played around with time travel. Because the storytelling, the characters, the events that take place, and the ridiculous, stupid use of coincidence and unlikeliness, it's so incredibly stupid. It's like so stupid. It's like a Michael Bay movie with lens flares instead of explosions. J.J. Abrams. And then you have Star Wars. I wasn't as big of a fan of Star Wars as Star Trek, but I loved the expanded universe. I also really liked episodes 2, 3, and 4, especially 3 and 4. But the hell with the movies. The hell with the movies. They had an awesome expanded universe. Knights of the Old Republic. Darth Bane novels. Incredibly, awesomely impressive comic books. And now they dismiss all that as Star Wars Legends. They're not going to use that universe anymore. They're wiping the slate clean to do Episode 7. Ugh. Oh well, so I lost interest in Star Trek and Star Wars. I also lost respect for Star Trek and Star Wars. Despite the fact the old stuff is still as good as it ever was, the franchises of Star Trek and Star Wars just don't have what I would call an appealing future. But the X-Files are back. That's actually a pretty good thing. Back when the X-Files first came out, I remember seeing ads for it. And they almost made it look like in the ads that they're going to be based on a true story. It looked like it was going to be kind of what Sci-Factor claims to be. Kind of like a paranormal investigation series. And the only reason why I thought that was, I remember, I think it was ITV did the ads for it. Was the channel I watched it on at first. And they promoted it as like, based on the true stories from the tabloids or some crazy line like that that wasn't exactly like that, but it kind of gave you the impression that's what they were claiming when they were advertising it. based on the stories from the tabloids or something like that. I forget. But I forget exactly how it was worded, but it almost made it sound like it was supposed to be based on real stories, which very quickly became obviously not true. But there are series and TV shows out there that do claim to be based on actual, paranormal encounters that people claim to have had happened. Whether or not they're real or not, I'm not going to judge at this time. But, there are shows that are based on that concept that this is real stories that people say really happened. And when I first saw the X-Files, that's kind of what it looked like they were promoting and advertising. But that first season had this awesome feeling of creepy realism to it. And a lot of people said the series got better as it went on and focused more on Scully and Mulder's characters. I actually kind of liked it best at first, when it just had this kind of detached, creepier sort of feeling to it. It became more of a cartoony action-adventure thing. I know it's not really cartoony action-adventure, but it just took on a more comfortably silly nature as time went on. And that didn't really do a whole lot for me. But I continued to look forward to watching it. I still liked it. Still continued to look forward to new episodes of the X-Files. It wasn't as big as Star Trek back in the 1990s, but it was probably the second biggest sci-fi franchise of the 1990s. Continuously, year after year, ever since 1993, the X-Files was a pretty big phenomenon. I was kind of apathetic. I felt like, if I missed an episode, I didn't really care. But over the years, I definitely appreciated it. I still remember being in my mind an episode, I think it was a cliffhanger, and I remember stuff in the desert, and it looked like they were burning bodies that may have been humans that were experimented on, or space aliens, or I forget now. But I remember there was a particular episode I just remember watching, and that being in my mind as I began summer vacation one year, and then I also spent a lot of that summer playing Dragon Warrior on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and probably a whole lot of Sega Genesis games as well too. But there's just something about that, the X-Files being in my memory and playing Dragon Warrior, that just kind of was a perfect summer vacation memory. And there were a couple of summer vacations in a row where I'd just go back and play a bunch of Dragon Warrior at one point. But yeah, the X-Files was definitely in my mind and a happy memory. But by the time it had ended, I actually liked the Lone Gunman spin-off series more than the X-Files at that point. And I really liked the Lone Gunman. It was pretty cool. And when the series ended, I never really thought about it much more. But now the X-Files are back. And when I watched the X-Files, it filled me with happy, nostalgic thoughts of the 1990s. And it's not just that that the return of that theme music and those characters made me think, oh, happy thoughts of the 1990s again, and early 2000s as well, I suppose. It's not just that. The first two episodes I thought were really good. The second of the two generally seems to get the better rating. At this point, I've only seen 2 episodes. And the second one seems to be better rated than the first one. But I really liked that first episode. I thought it did a pretty good job of picking up those characters and getting them back into the world they left behind when they left behind their jobs at the FBI. Well, actually, at the end of the series, Mulder and Scully were kind of on the run. But that had been resolved, apparently. I think it really is good storytelling. I am happy with the stories I've seen thus far. Those only 2 episodes. Well, it's 2 out of 6. It's a mini-series. But I think it's good. And if you haven't seen it yet, I figure do what you can to check it out. It's kind of nice when a series comes back and continues on to expand upon an existing universe. If only they would do that with Ghostbusters, but nope, they're going to reboot Ghostbusters. And they've been calling this an X-Files reboot. I guess the word reboot doesn't mean what it used to mean, because this is more of a sequel. It's a continuation. It's a season 10. It's a mini-series, so it's kind of a mini-season, but it's really like a 10th season. Although there actually is a comic book out there called X-Files Season 10. I don't know that much about the comic myself. I don't even know if the storyline and timeline of the comic is compatible with the new miniseries or not. Even if, on a weekly basis, the X-Files didn't do quite as much for me as, say, Star Trek would have, and even if I wasn't drawn back to it as much as I was to a lot of the Star Wars novels and comic books, or Star Trek novels and comic books, the X-Files was enjoyable science fiction. And I think it still is. So, I'm going to recommend to anybody who sees this to keep X-Files in their mind if they saw it and liked it. Or if they haven't seen it, check it out. I think that would be a good idea. Alright, well, any excuse I can come up with to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog CD, well, I'll just take advantage of that. And while I definitely was looking forward to talking about Sonic CD, I think I will do a specific video about that, talking about Sonic 1 and Sonic CD in the near future. If I were to take a look at how many videos I've uploaded in the UNIMULTIVERSE archive series, counting that first little preview video that I did in a hurry, and not counting some other videos I was thinking about retroactively adding to the collection, so far I'm at 25 videos. So using any excuse to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog CD, I consider 25 to be the Sonic CD event. 25 of anything is an excuse that it's time to talk about Sonic CD. After all, in Sonic the Hedgehog comics, it was issue 25 when they adapted Sonic CD into the Sonic comic book universe. It's also just about 250 uploads on the Joey Fancy YouTube channel, which is the channel I've been using. Oh, and while I'm here, why not one more X-Files memory? Somebody said that he could smell them coming, and Mulder responding, well, they said my deodorant was strong enough for a man.